campus, they're all in the know.
Live! Here we are on a gorgeous, at least here in Cleveland where I am, Monday afternoon. Welcome on in to Betting Weekly Hardball, part of the Betting Weekly Studios, part of Bet Rivers. If you're not laying your bets at Bet Rivers through the Bet Rivers app, what the heck are you doing? Doug Kezirian is with me. Doug, how are you? Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday to you. We got 1 week under our belts on this new show. Really fired up for what we started here. A lot of fun. Great to be with the Betting Weekly umbrella and all the gang down there as well across the board. So it's been awesome, right? We're obviously, a lot of us are consumed with the NBA playoffs, and we have another show there, Betting Weekly Fast Break, but also baseball alive and well. And are we sure the Rockies are good? I mean, a big win yesterday. Are we sure they're good?
No, we're not. We're not sure at all. Their manager got fired. You know, Bud Black, their manager, had to be like, "Oh, thank God, I got fired." I mean, he collects his paycheck.
That was the issue. That was the issue. The manager. That was the problem.
Sure.
Right.
Same thing with the Pirates. Absolutely, it's all the manager's fault. And Doug, the good thing about, we may not be on the weekends, but the good thing about sports gambling, and certainly baseball gambling, is outside of the couple of days during the All-Star break, there's always games. Doesn't matter the day of the week. Monday, typically a lighter day, but still 10 or 20 of the 30 major league teams in action. So a lot of plays here today for the fans.
And you're right. The beauty of baseball, it's a daily grind. I'm only doing half units on plays. Just, you're not going to, you want to avoid the huge ups, and really you want to avoid the downs. But I mean, that's the key with all this. And it's a grind. I mean, it's money ball for betting, right? Like, you're trying to win the larger sample size and grind out and have small edges here and there. And you also need to know, there's always valuable lessons, right? Like coming up, and we'll discuss it. The Yankees are on the West Coast, usually a house of horrors for them. Any Yankee fan will tell you, obviously you mentioned the firing of the manager in Colorado. Like, what does that mean for them? Like, bounce back game yesterday. So there's a lot of sort of betting lessons we can implement every single day. And that's the fun part about this, is the scar tissue, the stripes I've earned over the years and learned the hard way. Hence the scar tissue. I can implement them and share them with our audience.
All right, a lot of games to dive into. I do want to say, because you mentioned Moneyball, I have to say that while a great movie, barely a mention of Eric Chavez, no mention of what's his name who won the MVP? I'm drawing a blank on his name now. Batista? Not Batista. No mention of Barry Zito. No mention of any of the starting pitchers, but still an entertaining movie nonetheless. I think a lot of Browns fans wish Paul DePodesta would go back to baseball instead of the Browns, but that's another story for another day. Let's begin with some exciting action on the docket here. And you mentioned the Rockies. They ended their 8-game losing streak. Oddly enough, they fired their manager technically after they finally ended the losing streak. They won yesterday. They still are on pace for the worst record in the history of baseball, just 1 year after the White Sox broke the record for the worst record in history of baseball. Despite the new manager, nobody thinks the Rockies are going to win. The Rangers are a massive favorite at minus 295. How do you expect this team to react, or do you look at this team any differently, Doug, after they fire their manager, Bud Black?
Yeah, I think this is a great kind of conversation in betting, because we as sports bettors and recreational bettors particularly, and they're in Texas, right? So they just finished up the homestand. They're in Texas, big underdogs, and then the run line is certainly enticing. We typically remember what we last saw, and we want to react to what we last saw. And I think that's such an important thing with betting, is especially, what's going on in the NBA with the playoffs. You have to take a leap of faith. So I personally am not overreacting to what Colorado did yesterday. I also just think it was a bad situation for Pivetta on the bump for San Diego. And sometimes teams get too lackadaisical. And let's face it, the Rockies were embarrassed. But this is not a team that all of a sudden has flipped the switch. Now, there are times in sports where you want to bet on a team until they, when they fire their coach, until they lose. So sometimes they'll win 2, 3, 4 in a row. I don't think that's the deal with the Rockies. Like you said, they won technically before they fired Bud Black. So I'm going to go back to the well. I think Tyler Mahle is a good pitcher to back here. This lineup is historically awful in terms of Colorado. I mean, they are 7-31, right? So great. They got to win. They got the stench off them, but they're still 7-33, excuse me. So I think the Rangers and the travel, I just would lay the run line. The Texas's offense, obviously not anything to write home about, but this is the Colorado pitching. The bullpen's terrible. Dollander got nicked up and he got blasted by the Padres in his last outing. I don't think it's an effort thing or a focus. He's been bad on the road a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath, but I'm looking at a 5-2 game, 6-2, 7-2 game.
You know, a couple of things on Mahle, who you mentioned. He's made 8 starts this year, and he has not given up more than 2 earned runs in any of those 8 starts. He's given up 1 or less in 6 of the 8 starts. And yet, oddly enough, in his last 4 starts, in which he's only allowed a total of 5 runs over 23 innings, the Rangers are 0-4 in those games. What do we? Can we make anything of that? I mean, it's just bad luck.
So that's a good question, and I want to pick your brain with that, because there are things that are trends, and I talked about it last week a lot. So sometimes it'll be like, oh, this team's won 7 in a row when playing on a Wednesday or whatever, and sometimes there are other things involved in that trend. So it could be a different starting pitching. It could be a road versus home. Like, there's so many moving parts. So I likened it last week to a chemistry experiment. When you move or change like 6 ingredients, you can't pinpoint one of those as the reason, the result, right? So in this case, I only really want to know if the pitcher-batter combination, the battery is different, right? So if it's a batter combination, or excuse me, a catcher combination, and then the lineup changes. I know some teams, when a certain catcher's catching a pitcher, they'll move the lineup accordingly. And that's something that I can extract and project moving forward. Those are things that are actionable that I think makes sense from a betting standpoint. But the offense, I mean, look, if it's, vintage Greg Maddux, and you're telling me if you just give him 3 runs, he'll get the win, that's actionable. But the offense just happening to hit better when he's on the mound, and it doesn't really impact their lineup because there's a DH and whatnot. I would caution sample size and things like that just to play devil's advocate.
I agree. I think it's generally a coincidence. Now, sometimes you'll see it for whatever reason over the course of a year where there'll be a team that will average 5 runs a game for the year, but with one pitcher, they average 2 runs a game, whatever reason. Sometimes I think, it's that maybe what can happen as the year goes along. And I wonder how, this is just speculation. I can't obviously prove this, but I'd love to talk to some ball players about this. If this trend continues, where, like, again, last 4 starts, Mahle's given up 5 runs and they've lost all 4 games. I wonder if it gets to a point where, if that's, let's say it's happened 8, 9, 10 games in a row and Mahle can't get any wins, and you wonder if the players end up kind of feeling this pressure to score runs for Mahle to get him a win, and then they get into bad habits in those games when these streaks kind of go on for a long time.
Or if it's a pitcher who's just excellent and you need to get him a couple runs, like Skeens, maybe they're calling more sacrifices or hitting runs and just trying to manufacture runs early, and just instead of just playing, sort of not giving away outs or whatever it is. I do think his strategy changes, but you're right. Like, there is a mindset and pressure that is a component to things that weighs on you. Now, in the NBA, you might have officials, right? Scott Foster, Chris Paul against Scott Foster. But in baseball, certain managers could be attributed, umpires could be attributed to this guy, strike zones. There could be just personal beef dating from a couple years ago where the pitcher may have mouthed off to that umpire and he's just going to be in his head. And even not that there's a personal sort of issue there and he's going to call balls that strikes and strikes that are balls, but it could be just in someone's head and kind of on tilt, right? But then there's fluky trends like today. The Knicks, there's like they're 0-8 on ESPN, 7-1 on TNT.
Yeah.
In the second round of the playoffs the last couple of years. I think that's kind of coincidence, like you alluded to. So we just have to sort of extract and decipher all of it and kind of theorize moving forward.
I mean, maybe there's something to it. Maybe they, the Knicks take motivation from shutting up Charles Barkley, so they want to win, and there's nobody like that on ESPN. No, those things
Right.
are, yeah. You see, the Rangers are minus 295. I know you like the Rangers on the run line. The up-to-date number right now is minus 127, laying a run and a half. So tell me why you like that one.
Well, like I said, I think the pitching will be fine against this Colorado lineup. I'm not going to overreact to one game.
Right.
And the Rockies lineup is what it is. Now, did they break out the bats yesterday? Was there a wake-up call? Is there sort of a positive vibe that could spill over? Sure. I talked about it last week with the Phillies. We're kind of vibing effectively, but this is still a team that's 7-33, not good. Pivetta just had an off night, and maybe the Rockies were coming in a little fat. It's not like the Rockies got shut out, the Padres got shut out or anything.
Right.
So I just think bad pitching, bad hitting. I'll roll with the Rangers. And yes, their lineup is not explosive like we just saw San Diego, but it's going to be good enough, I think, to cover the run line. And I don't want to get involved with the minus 295. If you look at the Rockies, when they lose convincingly.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, it's the home team, so there's a chance in the ninth or extras you would need a dinger to cover the run line. But that's a risk I'm willing to take because 295 versus 127, big difference.
Yeah.
And the Rockies, I believe, the last 13 losses have all been by at least 2 runs.
That's amazing. That is amazing, and a lot of them more.
Yeah, it's an outlier season.
Yeah.
I lean into these situations.
Yeah, no
I'm not looking for regression here.
If you want a parlay, folks, of this one, I'm leaning towards. There's a parlay Rangers to score first and win the game at plus 110. Or now it's plus 125, so even better.
So second ups, right? They got the bottom, and I will say Colorado's pitcher Dollinger is not like a gas can. He's not, sensible. One of their worst guys, but it's still all relative to the Rockies.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next game, and it's the Yankees and the Mariners. This is an interesting one. Obviously, the Yankees have been pretty good on the season so far. We've talked about the fact that they have a great record when Max Fried starts, not a great record when he doesn't. That remains the case. The Mariners, on the other hand, they've hit the skids a little bit lately. They've dropped 3 in a row and 5 of 10. They had been playing much better, but they're still in first in the AL West at this point with the fourth best record. No, make that the 5th best record now in the American League at 22-17. The game tonight is in Seattle. Yankees, Mariners. Clark Schmidt, we talked about him last week against Emerson Hancock. He's obviously the Mariners have had some injuries to the pitching staff. Mariners have been good at home. Yankees have been a game over 500 on the road. What do you like in this one, Doug?
So anytime I see the Yankees on the West Coast, I proceed with caution because it's always been a bugaboo for this team, whether it's in Oakland or Seattle. Just weird things happen, late innings, they blow leads. Now, maybe that's just a thing of the past. And obviously they handled their business just recently, and they've won 4 of their last 5 overall. So they handled San Diego in the last 2 games of their series. That was at home. That wasn't in California. And then they won 2 of 3 in the Bay Area or Sacramento. So I just think typically it's hard to fly around and they're away. It just kind of disrupts your cycle, so to speak. And it's not the most attractive price. So I'm passing on the Yanks here at minus $1.43. What's crazy to me is the Mariners, we think of their off, they've gone over, 24, they're 24, 13 and 2 to the over. So they actually will give up runs. And I think the Yanks bats are pretty hot. So I was actually looking at the over, just even though Seattle's offense is always the one you would question and whether, they can muster enough. But I think we see some runs here but 8's a low number, but just no need for me to get involved. I maybe lean Yanks, but in a vacuum, I would play the Yanks. But because of this West Coast kind of variable and trend, if you will, I'm just going to just a lean for me.
Make of this what you will, but Emerson Hancock has started 5 games for the Mariners. Here are the total runs scored in the 5 games that he's pitched. Obviously different opponents. 15, 18, 13, 12, and the last game it was 8. So you'd get a push and 4 overs there on that 8. So again, I don't know. There's probably nothing to that trend. I don't know that that's an actionable stat, but just something that people may find interesting. When he pitches, they go to the pen early,
right?
too.
Yeah, I mean, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it could put strain, the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, for all we know, he could be tipping pitches. Who knows, right? Like there's always something out there. I always try to give a trend like the old college try. Like, does this make sense? Is there a narrative here I can apply it to, and then go from there? But sometimes it's statistical coincidence, like walking by a roulette wheel and seeing red 5 straight times, 8 straight times. But those are static odds that don't really translate to sports. Sports obviously has a lot more variables.
By the way, it's only May 12th. We're only at the quarter pole of the season. And I just went to look at the MVP odds here at Bet Rivers. And you could bet on the MVP at Bet Rivers. You could bet on the Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, who's going to win the World Series, whatever. Aaron Judge, I knew he'd be a big favorite. I didn't think he'd be quite this big, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. He is minus 2,000 to win the MVP.
I changed. It was 1,000 a few days ago.
Yeah, and now it's minus 2. I know the guy's been amazing. It would be a stunner, but you might as well drop a buck or two on somebody else. I don't mean to be, a bearer of bad news, but Aaron Judge does have a history of injury. If he got hurt, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to drop a couple of bucks on somebody else because the prices on everybody else are going to be great.
It's a little early in the season to have a minus 2,000 because of the injury component. And I agree. So typically what odds makers do in these types of shows and everything is they're not afraid of losing huge money line favorites, right? They're not going to lose sleep if the favorite, like let's say it's minus 700 and not minus 2,000.
Yeah.
They're not worried about losing tickets on that. They're worried about the long shots cashing.
Oh yeah.
And just so people can understand how it works, is there is a inter-office hold percentage with any index bet. Index bet is like, the list of all the MVP candidates, right? That's an index and only one can win, right? So when you make all the odds, you can't just make everyone minus 2,000, right? You have to change all the odds. And so the math of all those odds, there's a hold percentage in various books at different policy. It's around 20%. Okay. So the hold percentage is that no matter what all the bets come in, they're going to hold 20% of the total money that's come in. So if minus 2,000 is offered, then other odds are going to have to be 15 to 1, 50 to 1, 75 to 1, and whatnot. So typically, they don't shy away. They'd rather have the 50s and the 60s be like 30s and 40s, and then Judge in this case would be minus 2,000 and be like minus 1,700. So it's a little early, all things considered, to have a minus 2,000 favorite unless they're just getting overwhelming support, like a guy who's a star of the Yankees and they just don't want any more and whatever. So they're not going to go broke. But it is kind of surprising, saying to your point, like maybe there is opportunity elsewhere. I just don't know what it is. Like late last season, Bobby Witt Jr. was getting some action because of where the Royals were in the standings and what he had already done. And he was doing some stuff that we hadn't seen in ages. But the Royals are not in first place right now. Other teams don't have anyone hitting the cover off the ball. Tigers are a nice story, but there's no real MVP candidate there. Your Guardians might have somebody, make a move. Jose Ramirez is 60 to 1. Bregman could be interesting at 60 to 1. He's crushing doubles, and they're only 2 games back.
Yeah.
But Judge is obviously a beast. And like you said, you don't want to be rooting for an injury, but sometimes you just bet and forget about it.
By the way, if I had, if you wanted to throw just $5 on 2 long shots in the American League, I'll just mention these guys that I don't think it's crazy. Cal Raleigh of the Mariners is having a magnificent season. He's a catcher. A lot of catchers tend to wear down as the season goes along, but the Mariners are in first place. He's having a hell of a year. He's plus 7,500. And then I'll give you, this is a massive long shot. Spencer Torkelson plus 10,000. I mean, $2, $5, That's a
the case.
no risk situation, really, if you just spending a couple of dollars.
Yeah, make the case for Torkelson.
I mean, Torkelson, listen, the guy was the first overall pick in the draft, so he was supposed to be a superstar. He came up 2 years ago and was really good, and then last year, total disaster. Lost his job, couldn't hit to save his life. Well, he's playing really well on the best team in the league. He has 10 home runs. In the American League, only Aaron Judge with 14 and Cal Raleigh with 11 have more. He's got 33 RBIs in the season. In the American League, only Aaron Judge has more. And you look at the numbers. His slugging percentage is up there. His OPS is good. His WAR is pretty good. Again, he's way behind Aaron Judge, but so is everybody else. If you're betting a couple of bucks on anybody else, you're really just thinking that maybe Judge will get hurt or something. I hate to say that. I'm not rooting for him to get hurt, but why not? A couple of bucks there. Torkelson has the pedigree.
As I've said in these situations,
yeah,
I've made worse bets.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've made a worse bet than that. So it could be fun. Look, the average isn't there.
No.
A lot of things have to go right, but you're right. The Tigers, and honestly, with the National League, like just the Dodgers, right? Yeah. They have so much cannibalization that they're just so loaded with MVPs that maybe that guy like someone else, Tatis or someone, will get the benefit of the doubt. Now with the Yankees, they're not loaded. So if the Yankees win the division and Judge will get, just statistically, he's been fantastic, flirts with a triple crown. It would take a unique situation more than just like, hey, this team outperformed and they don't have a stack lineup like the Dodgers. Like in this case, like Judge would either have to fall off, get hurt, but 75 to 1, 60 to 1, some of these other prices. Like you said, a couple shekels couldn't kill you.
I do like Kyle Tucker at plus 400 in the NL. He's the third choice. And if you want to drop again, $5 for a long shot, maybe Kyle Schwarber, the guy's tied for the major league lead in home runs. Plus 5,000 on a Philly team that certainly could end up winning the East, even though the Mets are in first place right now. All right, let's get back to the next game. We talked about Paul Skeens last week. Let's do it again. Pirates and Mets. I just referenced the Mets there. The Mets are playing really well. They just took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs. Obviously, they're in first place in the National League. The game tonight is at Citi Field. The Mets are 15-4 at home, 26-15 overall. The Pirates, they're 5-14 at home on the road, 14-27 overall. They just fired their manager. This is two teams in totally opposite directions. Obviously, the Pirates got the better pitcher in Skeens, but like most of the Met rotation, David Peterson has pitched well. So this is an interesting game, mostly because Skeens is pitching.
And that's why it's so interesting to me. And maybe I'm just a little much right now, but I'm fascinated by Skeens because he hasn't been this amazing, ridiculous pitcher like he was last year. And I just wonder if something's a little off, and who knows, right? So I just think it's always compelling, but I don't think the market is overreacting to him either. Last year got out of hand, but that's not been the case this year. He just hasn't been as electric. Like he's had a few strikeouts in a couple games, and then he'll get the 6 or whatever like that. I was looking at the NERFy, new term for the show, no runs, first inning last week, and our friends at Bet Rivers with the stats and the trends. The no-run first inning market has hit in each of the last 8 games between the Pirates and Mets. Now, obviously, that dates back to last year, and the only reason I would consider this against this Mets lineup is because Skeens is on the bump, but we know the Pittsburgh lineup isn't much. So you kind of can, book that. Joking aside, it's a favorable situation, especially going against Peterson. But the question is Skeens against the top of this Mets lineup, and obviously it's potent lineup, but that's something that interests me. I may officially add it by the end of the show, but that's a play I would kind of want to get looking at. It's minus 148. So that's the problem. But again, Pirates lineup, nothing to write home about.
Terrible.
So the Pirates to not score in the first inning, minus 400. Oh. So against Peterson, would you lay it? No, that's too much. And all it takes is one swing of the back or bloop and a blast. You got 2 runs, Baseball's funky, right? Like the seeing eye singles and all that. But that, like the market understands the NERFy's likely going to come through here.
By the way, the the Pirates are plus 130 to have the lead after 5 innings. So with the Pirates being plus 138 for the game, now we got it plus 138 after 5. I mean, if you're going to consider the Pirates, take the after 5 because at least Skeens will likely pitch those 5 innings. I could see this game easily being 0-0 or 1-0 after 5 innings, and then the Mets blowing it open against the Pirates bullpen late in the game.
Okay, so just to clarify, that's a two-way line, right? So you can push that bet. So you don't have to have the lead, right? That's just the first 5 line, right?
Right.
Plus 1. Okay.
Okay.
The three-way line. So I'm seeing the Pirates first 5 at Bet Rivers minus 103 to have the lead. So they do have to have. So the lead is plus 138. So that it's like soccer 3-way betting. They have to have the lead. If it's tied, you don't get your money back. But it's only minus 103 if on the two-way line, which is the straight money line, meaning you could push after 5 innings. So is it worth it? I would prefer the minus 103 with the push option. Again, Pittsburgh's offense, things like that. But you do have the better pitcher. You don't have the better lineup. But you can, it's a way to back Skeens. There's also pitcher props that you can bet. Obviously, Skeens is strikeouts, but you can also bet total outs. I looked at this. It's 17.5, meaning 6 full innings is 6 times 3. That's 18 outs, right? So can he get through 6 innings? And then but the problem is, and this is why I didn't take it, it's minus 182. So if he gets touched up a little bit, I think they'll leave him in, but to me, it's not worth it. You can convert these money lines. All baseball, any sport betting, the odds are just an analytic. And minus 182, I can get my calculator out, but it pertains to about 60%. So if you think there's a better than 60% chance that Skeens will get through 6 innings, then you should lay the 182. There's quote unquote value.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We got somebody in the message board talking a little trash. They know I'm a Cubs fan. Corey says, hey, what do you say? The Cubs are going to lose today. Anyone else profit from fading the Northsiders over the weekend? I got the Mets run line on the first game, the Mets money line on the last game. I'm going to be playing Cubs team total under today. Cubs offense is fraudulent, in my opinion. I'm also on the Snakes today. I think that lineup can bang around Verlander. Bulls guards let me down versus the Phillies over the weekend. I got them at plus money in the first game, but they couldn't win the series. Yeah, they only scored 1 run in those other 2 games. Corey, listen, you did well. Congratulations. To call the Cubs offense fraudulent is crazy because the Cubs, they had a bad week this week. They did not have a great week. But overall, to this point in the season, they're in first place, and they have played by far the toughest schedule in baseball. They've played 3 games against a team under 500. They played 3 games with the Pirates. That's it. Every other game they've played so far is against good teams. They've played 7 with the Dodgers, 3 with the Mets, 3 with the Giants, 6 with the Padres, the Diamondbacks, all Phillies. They've done nothing. And their next 21 games, the best team the Cubs will play is Cincinnati, who's 2 games under 500. They got 6 with the Marlins, the Rockies, the White Sox. So I do not believe their lineup is fraudulent, but they just had a bad week. No matter how good your lineup is, you're going to have bad stretches, Doug. Doesn't matter.
100% agree.
Yeah.
And yes, Corey did a nice job cashing those tickets. So good to anticipate rather than just tail what's already going on and betting what you last saw. So nicely done there. Yeah. And he's putting it out there. And that's the beauty of betting. And you can, respectfully trash talk a little bit, which I give a little tip of the cap to Corey as well for respectfully trash talking.
I like
and that's part of the allure of betting, right? You get sort of your ego involved and you brag after the fact, not in an immature way, but it's fun to, put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yes.
That's literally what gambling is. So good for him. Good on him. But in terms of, what the Cubs have done, we'll see, right? Like, we'll see. There's been teams in the past that have surprised starts that we did not see coming and, knocked the cover off the ball that came back to earth a little bit. I think the Cubs offense is probably here to stay for the most part, maybe not lead the league in batting, but we'll be up there. So I'm a believer in the Northsiders, and I think they'll fly the W a little bit more frequently than we think, or that some think, and especially this past weekend. But good on Corey to get ahead of things.
No doubt. Their bullpen does stink. I'll give you that. We mentioned the Guardians there. Brewers at the Guardians tonight after the Phillies just took 2 out of 3 from the Guardians. The Brewers, 20-21, they're 8-14. They've lost 3 of their last 4 and 6 of their last 10. So the usually reliable Brewers have not been playing well. Now, Freddie Peralta is their ace. Obviously, he's been great the last couple of years. He did leave his last start early, Doug. So I don't know how much you're going to factor into that. On paper, he seems like a good play against the Guardians lineup that's done nothing the last 2 days. But on the other hand, Ben Lively with a 3.48 ERA, shockingly has the best ERA on the Guardians staff. Brewers are a -125 favorite, as you see. The game will start at 6:10. What do you think of this game? Stay away.
Whenever there's a situation with a pitcher leaving early, that you have to you respect it, right? But I do think, given we are mid-May and teams are not going to rush guys back and force things along those lines, they're just not. And he's the bullpen sessions and everything. So I'm okay if he's cleared. He's cleared. I don't think teams now. If this were late September, pennant race, or in the playoffs, it might be one of those situations where he gives it a go. But this is not going to be a Kurt Schilling sock situation where a guy's playing through something and going to give him a few innings. I think it's legit. Like, he's fine. And frankly, I think it's like he's like, more than cleared, right? Like, they're not messing around with a recurring thing. But it also depends on the injury. Sometimes hamstrings are different and things like that. So got to always pay attention to that.
I'll give you another reason why they wouldn't mess around with him. I agree with everything you said, but I'll give you a little bonus reason why they wouldn't mess around with him if they thought there was a chance he was hurt. The reality is that the Brewers are often, like last year, I didn't think the Brewers would be any good, and they won the division going away. So the Brewers, in a way, like the Guardians, always seem to be in contention, even in years you don't think they will be. However, maybe they've just lost too much the last 2 years. They're under 500 now. We'll see. But if they end up not being a contender at the trade deadline, or even before that, Freddie Peralta in a trade market that doesn't have a lot of quality pitching, because you look at the Marlins, Alcantara has been terrible. They don't have anybody else. The Rockies have no pitchers to trade. The White Sox have no pitchers to trade. The Brewers could get a lot for Freddie Garcia at the trade deadline. And if they're thinking about that at all, they're not going to take any chance with him injury-wise.
All good points. And that's all part of the equation when you're betting these games. And that's why baseball could be so difficult. But I have no opinion on this game. But, yeah, you're right. The Brewers, like, the futures market's there for them.
One more game I wanted to hit on, Doug, before we wrap up. The Angels and the Padres. Padres, we just talked about coming off that series. They did lose to the Rockies the last game of that series. Padres are 14-4 at home. We talked about Michael King last week in his last start against the Yankees. Last 5 starts, 31 1/3 innings. He's only given up 5 earned runs. The former Yankee's been sensational, and that's why, part of the reason why, obviously, the Angels are not very good, that the Padres are a massive favorite in this game.
I was and am close to pulling the trigger on the Padres.
Yeah.
Even at -225, I think there's line value. Is there something, we talked about trends, is there something to this home record, right? Like, I don't know if opponents are running to Tijuana on their off nights and things like that near San Diego or anything like that. I just think the Padres are a really good team. They have an electric crowd. Home ups gives you an advantage late in the game, right? Like, there is an advantage to having strategically a second bottom ups. And the crowd's great. The lineup's awesome. And the pitching staff, including King, has been solid. So there's a lot to like, and there's not a ton to like with the Halos here. So I think 225, we talk about value. This is about 70% off the top of my head. I think there's a better than 70% chance they win. I mean, the Angels just lost 2 of 3 to the Orioles, who've been struggling. The Angels are not good. They're last place, 16-23. They have a few young guys here and there, but I think the Padres can deliver a hurt. And I like the Padres off a loss here, coming home.
Right.
And so maybe even a run line. I think the bats break out. So maybe the run line there. It's a low over-under, but I think the Padres will do the damage in terms of the offense.
Yeah.
I'm close to adding the Padres, maybe even just close to adding the run line here.
Yeah. I like I actually like the under because I don't think I could see the Angels getting shut out in this game.
Yes.
And I think Kikuchi's good enough that the Padres don't have a monster day. Kikuchi's has not given up more than 4 runs in a game, and 6 of his 8 starts, he's given up 3 runs or less. I'd probably stay away from it, but if I had to, I would lean towards the under on that one. But I don't know. The Padres, you're right.
He's been pretty shaky on the road, or shakier, I should say.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's they stink. Every year there seems to be a group of people that believe this Angels turnaround is happening, and it never does. I mean, think about it. Mike Trout has played 3 playoff games. 3. That's insane. They had for a good time, they had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani at the time, the 2 best players in baseball, and never went to the playoffs with the 2 of them together. That's how bad the rest of the team was.
Do you know what Trout's batting right now?
I don't off the top of my head.
He's under the Mendoza line. He's $179.
I know he's got the power.
Crazy.
He's got the home runs, but
it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
he's obviously. We're going to look back at his career, and it's going to be really statistically weird. He won an MVP with an 81-win team, right?
Yeah.
And we glorify it, but to your point, he's only played 3 playoff games. But it's baseball. You can't carry teams to the playoffs like LeBron did early in his career in 2007 when he took that Cavs team to the finals. So I'm a Trout fan. Obviously, he's got ridiculous skill set, but it's a brutal supporting cast, to say the least.
Horrible. Speaking of brutal, I know you got the basketball show coming up, and I just every time I think about basketball right now, that Cavs game last night made me sick to my stomach. What an embarrassment that was, Doug. Tell us about what's going on in Fast Break today.
Yeah, top of the hour, Betting Weekly Fast Break, another show we also launched 1 week ago from today with Betting Weekly Hardball, breaking down the hoops action. And so obviously you got 2 more playoff games tonight. We're going to be dissecting some series prices. And you mentioned Cleveland, the top seed in the East, down 3-1 after laying a giant egg in a virtual must-win playoff game last night. A complete no-show across the board. But we're going to look ahead to tonight's Celtics-Knicks. Such a fascinating series. I'm so intrigued with how this series has unfolded. The road team winning the first 3, and after 20-point wins in each game 20-point leads by Boston in each game. Also, we have the Warriors, which are playing shorthanded. So a lot of stuff to break down all throughout the week, every weekday, Betting Weekly Fast Break. And by the end of the week, we're going to be talking some WNBA. We got some futures, and then the season opening night is this Friday. So we're got plenty of hardball straight ahead on this, Bet Rivers Network and the Betting Weekly umbrella. So we expect everyone to tune in and enjoy, and hopefully glean some wisdom and find some winners.
If you are going to make any of the bets that we, especially Doug, have suggested, please make sure you're using the Bet Rivers app or the Bet Rivers website. It's very easy to navigate. You can bet on any sport you want. We've been talking baseball. Doug's going to be talking basketball. He's going to be talking the WNBA. Obviously with the WNBA, with the addition of Caitlin Clark, is just blown up in the last year. By the way, Caitlin Clark, I just saw this futures bet on Caitlin Clark to break the WNBA single game scoring record, 54 points in a game, plus 900. Doug, would you throw $5 on Caitlin Clark to score 54 and break the WNBA record at plus 900?
I would not. Not. So a couple things.
Yeah.
The Fever are absolutely loaded, and she's going to have some huge statistical games. I just think she's going to spread the wealth a little bit. There's a lot of mouths. They have like 4 of the 5 starters are all-stars last year. And she's a pass first, and she understands the team concept. So she's going to have a ton of assists. I think she's going to have a ton of 15 assist games.
Yeah.
But I think scoring that many is really tough. I think she's going to sit some fourth quarters in a game like that. Like, she might have 8 or 9 threes in a game, but that's only 27 points, right?
Yeah,
so can she double that with 2-pointers and free throws? Like, I don't know.
It'd be tough.
And I think teams will run at her and get the ball out of her hands if she's at 40 or 30 or something like that. So
fair enough.
It's hard for guards. Typically don't lead the league in scoring. Jewel Lloyd did it a few years ago, things like that. It's usually the bigs like Asia Wilson last year. So I do not anticipate that, but I do think there's some fun props offered on Bet Rivers site and app that really are that involving Caitlin Clark that do offer some value. So we'll dissect that all week for sure.
Sounds good. All right, let's recap what you like here today. Let's start with the Rangers. The first game we talked about, you like them minus 1.5 runs against the Rockies.
I'm not going to overthink it. It's an outlier season for the Rockies, like I mentioned. Great, they had a big game yesterday. Whatever, who cares? They got to Pavetta, fine. Now they're on the road to Texas. Rangers are better pitching. I'm not going to overthink it. We've been riding this, so we have house money here, and there's really no reason to get off this gravy train that is the Colorado fade. I know the math guys and think regression and all this, but as you said earlier, Adam, the White Sox broke a record for fewest wins last year, and the Rockies are going after it this year. And I think there's money to be made with the run line, because I want to say the last 12 or 13 losses by Colorado have all come by at least 2 runs. So I'm not going to mess around with the money line. I'm going to lay the run line with Texas, even as the home team.
Another pick you like, the Cardinals-Phillies game. The Cardinals have won 8 straight. I know you're leaning Cardinals, but you like the under on the run line after 5 innings.
Yeah, it's simple. Both pitchers really solid, right? So you mentioned the Cardinals' bats are hot, but their pitching's been hot. So it's not just this like lineup that's raking and you don't want to bet into it. So why take an under? I do think there's something to be said about the first 5 under, because I want to isolate both pitchers. In the first 5 total, I'm just looking it up right now, 4.5 runs, which is usually the case in most games. So it's minus 112. And both guys have been lights out. So Cardinals, we talked about it last week, Liberatore, really solid. And what Christopher Sanchez has been excellent. So we saw the Phillies lineup last night, Sunday Night Baseball. Yes, they have Schwarber, but they can go quiet. Harper and things like that. They threatened. So did the Guardians. But 4.5 is a big number when you like both pitchers. You get through that first inning. Even if you give up a run, it's fine, because you have the back half of the lineup for the next couple innings, things like that. So under 4.5 is a bet I like in that game for the first 5 innings.
And finally, the Padres against the Angels. Are we officially going Padres minus 25?
No, we're going to play the run line. I don't want to mess around, because it's just a lot of chalk. Now you can maybe parlay something, things like that, which some would say you don't do, but I understand it's recreational betting, things like that. But minus 1.5 plus 102. Kikuchi, like you said, has been fine. It's been solid. I can see the under minus, under 7.5. It's pretty juiced at Bet Rivers minus 127. So certainly some steam there, but I'm just going to roll with the Padres run line. I think it's a good bounce back spot for San Diego after getting waxed at Coors Field yesterday.
Great stuff as always, Doug. And we will be back together tomorrow. Doug will be on Betting Weekly Hardball every weekday at 2:00. And so stick around. In about 15 minutes, we switch from baseball to basketball. Who's on with you today, Doug?
We got Wes Reynolds, who is an Indiana native, so he might be streaking. We might have to pull him away from the Indiana streets, where he's just celebrating all night after the Pacers take a 3-1 lead over where you are, the Cleveland Cavaliers. But we're going to break both games down. A lot of prop action as well. I have a play on Tatum's points prop for tonight. He's gone under the first 3 games of the series, so we'll break that down and much more. Adam, I really enjoyed it the first week and change now. So we got, we're off and running right now, but it's been a lot of fun. We've had some nice winning days as well. So it's good to be part of the Betting Weekly family across the board.
Everybody enjoy. Hope you hit all your bets. Thanks to Alex and Chris for producing today. We'll talk to you next time on Betting Weekly Hardball.